Thank you. Welcome to the Roland GRIMES, not just sports and entertainment show. If you don't know by now, now you know. I'm your host, Roland Bubba Grimes. And as always, we thank you for joining us once again for this edition of the Roland GRIMES, not just sports and entertainment show. Tonight we have a very special treat for you. We have a gentleman by the name of Mr. AVON Lucas from the AVON Lucas Project and a whole bunch of other great things. This young man is a bassist extraordinaire. Matter of fact, he's one of the few people that can actually play the monster known as the 9-string bass. In the past, he's done work with such renowned artists as Michael Henderson, Gene Carn, Atlantic Starr, and of course, he's world renowned in his own right. Sit tight as we get ready for the introduction of Mr. AVON Lucas when the Roland GRIMES, not just sports entertainment show, returns to you in a few minutes. Sit tight. Right back at you. Thank you. Welcome back, Roland GRIMES, not just sports entertainment show. As I mentioned to you earlier, I have the dynamic bassist extraordinaire with us right here in the Washington, D.C. area. Ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together for Mr. AVON Lucas. AVON, my pleasure. Brother. How are you, sir? Good, super. Look, we're actually recording in your custom-made studio. Do me a favor. Tell me about the studio.
Well, this is where mad scientists go and do what we do.
So I feel real comfortable.
But you know, we have drums. This is my bass rig. As a matter of fact, it's been called Pepco because every time I turn it on, you know, the power company, they like it with all this gear.
They jack up the price.
Right. But at least from my arsenal, I have a mixer. I got this electric upright. Actually, I started on upright.
You did?
I started.
Well, I hear that a lot of basses started upright, not the electric, but the acoustic upright?
Right.
Okay.
And that was in Woodson Junior High School, down there in Minnesota Avenue.
I know the place well. I used to run over, I was at Kimball Elementary,
right.
A little further down on Eli Place. I used to run over to Woodson and get my nose punched in.
Oh, yeah. Matter of fact, I should have went to Roper, but my mom said, you know, you need to do something different. And really, that move changed everything because, you know, that's where I actually started playing.
Now, did they have a built-in fine arts and music program? What was it that set this thing off for?
There was a music teacher called Mr. Sands, and he also used to MD back in the day for Howard Theater.
Okay.
And you know, I eventually ended up in instrumental music. I had a friend. He said, "Hey man, let's take all our classes together." You know, so I wasn't a musician at the time, right? So I said, "Okay, well."
So you had your cut buddies.
Right. I just met them. You know, I'm in a different school. You know, a whole nother hood. River Terrace boys, so I'm trying to make all the friends I can, you know.
You better.
So you know, you say, well, look, let's go ahead and take all our classes together. And one of the classes was music, but I didn't realize it was instrumental music. So when I realized what it was, I said, well, Dad, man, what are you going to play? He said, bass. I said, well, okay, I'm going to play bass too. And that's how I started. It wasn't, you know, it was like it found me rather than I found it.
Okay. So there was no major epiphany. So you just started doing this as part of this class. You had this teacher that influenced you. But at what point did you say, you know what, I'm really not bored to death playing this thing. I want to continue to do this?
Well, there was a stage band. And we had, Woodson Junior High back then, you know, back then the schools had instruments. Mm-hmm. They actually funded the arts. You know, I mean, the arts is a cerebral activity. So, you know, I don't know what happened today. I'm kind of upset about today's school system approach. But back then, Woodson Junior High had one of the only full string sections. So we had violins, violas, of course, and I was on the upright bass. We had cellos, and so that made us unique in the school system. So, you know, once we, in a matter of what, 6 months, I went from a starter to #1 of 3 bass players in 6 months. So I had a knack for it, and you know, because it just fell right in. It just fell right in.
Now, did you own your own bass during that time, or did you basically just use the school sponsor?
Now, that was a problem. Okay. See, my dad, he used to drive a cement mixer truck, right? And he used to be real early. He used to get off work early. And, you know, one of the problems with the upright was it was so big, I couldn't get it home to practice. I remember one day, I bought it on the bus. And the high school boys, man, they just lit into me, man. With, you know, they just joned me off the bus. You know what I mean? So I told Dad, I said, look, you know,
I can't do this.
I need a guitar. When he bought me a guitar. It was like one of those Beatle basses, like a Paul McCartney bass, you know.
Yeah, I remember those.
And when I got on the bus with that, man, it was like it was a whole nother thing. I mean, it flipped around, so that's kind of like.
Man, it's funny how, you know, your shoes, your shirt, right, your instrument, you know, how you cut your hair will change how the friends in your social stratosphere treat you. Yeah. But you did say something a little earlier, and I get it. You're from DC. You're on the southeast side of things, so you and I have similar flavor because I was born and raised on that side of the chocolate city too. But you mentioned the musical instruments being a cerebral process. And one of the things that's going on now with all of the people that I'm talking to in the industry, and I've been reaching out to many of them, high and low, to coordinate, to make that coordinated effort to connect the musical journey with the academic proficiency and even with some of the athletic progress, because the rhythm, the notes, the way that you calculate different things is applicable to almost any academic or athletic process.
It's math. It's math. You know, and like I said, you know, when you take a string, you can divide it up in many different ways. In Western music, it's divided in 12 tones. And so, you know, when you look at 12, that's an organizational number. And when you go through the alphabet,
4 threes or 6 twos or
yeah,
1 12.
There you go. So it's
right, y'all see that?
Right there. you can count. So you know, so music. When a person is playing music, reading music, even if you're not a great reader, if you're playing it, you're still doing math. You know, so music it can be approached artistically, but it can also be approached mathematically.
Well, you want to approach it. You may very well approach it artistically, but it also summons the mathematical side.
Oh
of
yeah,
your brain.
without question.
You have to use both.
It's working. You're right. And I think that's something that the academia of today should revisit that.
Well, I mean, if our taxpayer dollars are going into the schools, then shouldn't we have some influence over how some of that works, or is it just we're just shut out of the process completely? Because I can tell you of some other schools that are funding these things in some communities that
It's coming back.
Okay.
It is coming back, which is good, you know, because when you look at whole young folks, they're going to express themselves musically. Period.
Young folks are going to express themselves.
Period. You know what I mean?
Right.
And so when especially the urban teenager didn't have the musical training to express himself instrumentally, this is where you get loops and samples and stuff, because they were going to do something.
Well, playing a dozen.
There you go.
That's where you get that from.
There you go.
We have to get it out, especially in those urban environments,
Oh, yeah.
because you have a lot of pent up stuff that you need to get rid of.
Basketball doesn't take care of it all.
Right.
Let me tell you that.
And another thing, when you play the bass, you rarely have a concussion. So
Right.
I mean, there are some advantages to it. Now, before we go to our next segment, I want to ask you this question. I'm going to make a statement, then I'm going to ask a question. I've been told it's expensive. I've been told that the musical journey is costly. I've been told that there's not a lot of money in colleges for scholarships for people who play instruments. So, especially folks who are coming from urban environments, athletics is the way out, academics is the way out. I'm not saying out, let me restate that, is a way up.
Right.
Forget out. We don't necessarily need to run out of our neighborhood, we just need to lift up our neighborhoods. Is it incorrect, or is it fairly accurate when we say it's an expensive journey? It's one that does not afford opportunity to pay for your college education. Is that an accurate statement, or does it have some variance?
This musical gear in the studio is expensive. This is the bottom line. However, when a person displays talent and a person has that will to really do something, it seems to find its way. It's almost like water seeks its level. You know what I mean? It will always seek the lowest level. And so if you have an artist and they're really into it, they seem to eventually come up with an instrument or gear. And can they use a helping hand? I know I could. I mean, I had a dad who helped me out. Some people don't have that. That's why in school. That's right. That's right. And I've seen that certain programs happen, where they supply out instruments, loaner instruments even. And then eventually some of these kids get sponsored, so.
Sure.
I was just fortunate that my dad would buy that for me, and even though it was a cheap bass, you know what I mean, but that was all I needed,
and that's interesting, because that's one of the sort of differences between the musical journey and athletic journey. Athletic journey is, especially in a game like football, where I moved on into college and semi-pro, it's calculated. The season is determined. There are very little opportunities for something to come from outside in to make this thing happen. Everything is, from the workouts to the games, the whistle's going to blow at a certain time.
Right.
The games are scheduled, it's going to happen unless there's a tornado or a hurricane. Well, in your musical journey, something can happen at any time.
Right.
You can be playing meet someone. In other words, as you talk about water finds its way, in your musical journey, not only can you find a way and make a way, but other things can find a way and make a way to you as well. Is that
because sometimes we have to be in a receptive mode where when opportunity comes, we're ready. And like me, it was a rough camp. That's all I can say. So, and I'm kind of light bright kind of guy, in urban in the southeast. So a lot of my friends didn't go the right way, but music actually took me out of the bad element. And while they was out there maybe shooting basketball or perhaps doing something they shouldn't have been doing, I was in the house trying to figure out James Brown. I was in the house trying to figure out, what note is this? What is, dang, I'd like to be able to do that. So.
And that never ends, because you can pick up James Brown, you can pick up Billy Paul, you can pick up Billy Preston, you can pick up anything that you want and find something in it that you can.
And I'm taught by ear. Let's see. One of the things that the urban experience is that most inner city parents, some of them happen to be single parents, can't really afford those expensive music lessons. That's where the school system comes in. you kind of get that automatically. You know, if you're an affluent person, you know, say in other areas, like say like Potomac, Maryland, around our area, it's pretty affluent. You know, most folks from that neck of the woods can afford to not only have the school experience, but to have the private instructor. So that's why a lot of, you know, you can tell that certain people are very, what they may call classically trained. Whereas urban folks may have the chops, the same ability, but they, you know, they don't get that early classical training because it's really expensive.
Now, does that then separate you later in life? Does the classical experience much different from the quote-unquote urban experience? Is that a harbinger for what your future may look like?
It actually, in a way, the answer is yes. But if once again, if you hang in there and you keep those notes in that paper and you keep studying it, you can learn that. You know, like Wynton Marsalis is one of the few persons. One thing I like about him is he's comfortable in a classical setting. You can take some of the greatest jazz artists, you know, perhaps you can think of, and they still, even though they probably could wipe the floor with some classical players, they still may not be comfortable in that genre, and that's because of, you know, their exposure. But still, you know, basically, if you ask me, all the chops comes from classical and jazz, you know, and that feel comes from that blues and R&B, you know. So fortunately, I started, you know, with just the R&B, you know, but I met a guy named Bobby Parker. You might know him. He's a blues guy, and you know, he helped me figure out the feel, because you know, when you're a bass player or you're a drummer or even a guitar player, you know, unlike a horn player, you know, when they pick up their horn or their instrument, like a violinist or horn player, trumpet player, they're starting at the melody, the top of the music. But you know, when you're a bass player, we're sort of dug in the background. It takes us about five years minimum to get the groove straight.
Bass and drums put the funk under it.
Oh, right.
So that's your foundation.
Right, you know, and so when you're a rhythm section instrument, you know, you have to spend that quality time initially figuring out how to keep the beat, how to stay steady, you know, how to support the melody and the vocals.
That's awesome. So folks, we're getting an academic lesson in a musical domain. Once again, Roland Bubba Grimes. I will be back shortly, and we're going to talk a little bit more about Bobby Parker and some of the other folks who have influenced Mr. Avon Lucas as he prepares the brand new Avon Lucas project. Folks, sit tight. We'll be back with you in a few moments. Welcome back, Roland Grimes, not just sports and entertainment show here with my main man, Mr. Avon Lucas. We're going to talk about the Avon Lucas project, and as we do, we're going to talk more about some of the people who influenced the incredible sound that you will be hearing shortly as this man picks up these bass guitars and does his thing just for you. You may notice a slight shift in the lighting. My videographer, Marquisha, was telling me that people couldn't see my beautiful face because of the reflection in my glasses. I just want to make sure y'all know that I am still pretty. Nonetheless, here we go, folks. I'm going to divert my attention back to Brother Lucas, and we're going to ask you right off the break, Bobby Parker, what does that mean to you?
Well, Bobby is a blues guy. He actually assisted even Chuck Brown playing, you know. He's influenced a lot of people. Played with James Brown, played all over the world, man, you know. And he's a blues guy. He had a record out back in the day. He started in the 50s, so Bobby's up there in age. But matter of fact, I talked to him a couple of days ago. We stay in contact.
Super.
And basically, you know, what he did was we used to play all the NCO bases, and we used to do a lot of gigs. And from him showing me blues, which is the blues is nothing like that feel, and everybody can't do it, but Bobby is an expert at it, man. I mean, and he showed me how to play confident, even if you make a mistake, how to touch and go. That's what he used to talk. When you hit a bad note, you sort of touch and go, and then he showed me how to play a solid bass line. Just like no fancy stuff, just solid playing. You know what I mean? And I guess the other thing about Bobby was he always had a big tone. You know what I mean? So it's one thing to play a lot of notes, which I can do that. And then when you play for a while, like I've been playing almost 40 years, you should be able to do that. But really, the reason why I buy these instruments and pay this money for these instruments is really not for the many notes, but it's for that one fat note.
Now, when you say blues is difficult to play, for most people, what does that mean?
It's the feel. There's a certain feel or energy about it. The same thing is about even reggae. You know what I mean? I've played, that's another thing that I play. I played world beat with a world beat band called Mama Jamma. But Bobby was in the beginning of my development, so he helped me choose instruments. He showed me how to get the tone out of the instruments. He showed me how to correct hand techniques. And he really didn't teach me how to play, but he always had me Friday and Saturday at somebody's gig. And even though we called it the chilling circuit, it was a chilling circuit, but week in and week out, always playing a gig, it helps you chop.
So he sort of helped you with experiencing the bass.
Right. And not only that, just the whole drama around the bass. The whole setting up, sound check, finding your power in your room, making sure your stuff works, keeping your gear up, practical things. Not just the
letting the dogs out.
Right. Yeah, I got a 200-pound mastiff up there. Y'all probably heard him. He's definitely.
When he heard you say the feel, he cut loose. He said, "I'm 200 pounds. I'm feeling like busted loose." We're gonna let you play that in a minute, but I'm gonna dig into this a little bit deeper, and I hope I don't miss it. But I'm gonna give it a try. Let's get back to this feel, all right? And I want to take it there. Blues, feel. Is there something that is supposed to happen cataclysmic in your life to feel the blues? Is it something that's supposed to happen fantastic in your life? Is it really an extension of something that's going on in and around you, and you just put it out there, or is it much more of a discipline?
It's actually it's both. The blues. When people say the blues, they think sad. No, it's not. It's not an emotion like that. I mean, being confident in yourself, feeling good, life is treating you right, so to speak. That some of your best blues can come out there. However, they call it paying the dues in the music business. And sometimes when you sort of like play an empty room, when you have a series of that, most that's a hard thing for most musicians to do. Mm-hmm. You come up there, you spend your time, you in the studio,
and 6 people in the audience.
And 6 people in the audience. Things like that. Or you show up, you play. Next thing you know, you're supposed to get $50 and somebody paid you $25. All the experience, So with Bobby, he had that whole blues man aura around him. And it's hard to explain. It was just a natural fit for him? Yeah, for him it was. For me, I was a young guy. I mean, when I first picked up my bass, I was into, James Brown and the R&B thing.
Well, let me jump in there on that one. Was Bobby from Mississippi, Alabama, and you were from Washington, D.C.?
I don't know where Bobby was from. I'm not. I think he's. I know he's East Coast somewhere. I don't think he really was from the
Deep
South.
Okay.
I don't think so. But he was. You know, he could just. He had a natural ability. He could play and he could sing. And like I said, he played with James Brown. You know, and when I met him, it was like, well, man, you used to play with James Brown.
Right.
You know, so I wanted to play with that guy. You know, I wanted to learn.
Because he was the guy that helped pull in some of the JBs and the rhythm section with Frankie Waddy and Lucy Catfish and those guys. He was part of the ones who helped pull them out of Ohio and into the James Brown set.
You know what? Bobby has been the world over.
Gotcha.
You know what I mean? And anybody who really knows it. Matter of fact, you know, even in Europe, he's pretty famous. You know, so what I did was I took from that and his experience, and then it made me a more solid player, especially since I was really self-taught.
Now, having said that, you obviously appreciated whatever it was that he brought to the party. Now, in that, you're going to take some of that with you as you deal with other folks, as you work with other artists, etc. Did you find a similar appreciation for you from where you were coming from, or did you generally find that people that, man, I don't want to hear it, I don't want to feel it, I want to spirit, I want to do this so I can get paid, I want to move this over, I want to get to the next party, whatever it is that grew inside of you, man, I don't want that.
Well, you know, I love music.
Okay.
So if you really love something, you don't do it superficially. You know, I'm totally 100% into it, especially when you're young. You know, you're living with your parents, so to speak, and you know, you don't have to worry about the bills. You can have just a focus.
Right.
You know, a young person focusing. And when me and Bobby was there, you know, it was like it was right at the proper time. You know, when I went on from Bobby Parker, because eventually I had to move on.
Sure.
You know, I played with a band. Continental Express. You know, I played with Young 100 Years Time and all kinds of female vocalists, and you know, so basically I became a guy who was just gigging. You know, sort of like have baseball travel. I would specialize in no rehearsal, showing up to the gig and just getting through the gig. You know, like a sort of like freelance guy. That's what you would call it. And everybody can't do that neither. A lot of people can play
in the studio.
Right. Just like you were saying in the sports environment, a lot of times that's a pretty regimented environment. You know, you got the coach, assistant coach, and all those things, and game time, certain regimental drills. But
yeah, because some of the guys who excelled in the NFL couldn't hold out jock on the playground. You know, because there were no referees.
Right.
You know, there were no yard markers. You know, there were no first downs. You know, it was throw it up and let's tackle.
Right.
And those guys couldn't hang. But when they got into, you know, when they eventually went into a much more structured environment,
right,
sometimes they excelled, and then vice versa. As I mentioned that to you, you also played with some groups and individuals who had what I would consider some very good commercial success. So I'm going to throw some names out at you and then just kind of talk about some of those experiences. I'm a big fan of Wide Receiver. I'm a big fan of that ballad that he sang. I can't remember the name. You know, I'm a big fan of the kid. Well, of course he sang Starship, but he did the I think it was the Temptations jam, Be My Girl.
Okay.
And he killed it. Michael Henderson, Houston, Texas.
Yes, Michael Henderson. Well, it's interesting. I met Michael Henderson really through Gene Cohn, because there was a time when I think him and Gene could have done a record together.
Yeah, they have.
Yeah, I think they did a record together. And so what happened was I was playing with Gene Cohn, and kind of off and on, you know, because I was playing with a lot of people, you know. But one day, some bass player, of course Michael Henderson is a bass player, okay, by the way. And so on Starship, that's him playing bass.
Wow.
A lot of people don't know that, you know, so he can play bass. So,
and that was actually titled Under Norman Connors.
Yeah, even though it was under Norman Connors, he wrote it, he played it, he sang it. So really, I mean, you know.
Well, you know, I think that's where he worked with Gene. was on one of those Norman Conference.
Yeah.
I believe.
Yeah. Because Norman, you know, he would foster or promote a lot of singers. You know what I mean? So female singers especially. But like I said, one day I showed up, got a call from somebody in Baltimore. Look, Avon, come do this gig. It's for Michael Henderson. So when I showed up, at the time I was playing a 9-string bass, you know, and Michael Henderson looked at me and said, "Man, this dude ain't gonna play the part. This dude's gonna be all over the place.
He's not
you
gonna
know
play
what I
the
mean?" But what happened was that they actually gave me the stuff. I learned this show in about a couple of hours. You know what I mean? He was surprised with that. And then when I played it, I played the stuff the way the record was.
Now, for those of us who don't quite know what that means, explain to us what they gave me the show and I learned the part in 2 hours. Explain what that means.
Basically, they gave me a CD of certain songs that he played, a collection of, and on the way up, I spent an hour with it because this was a last-minute filler gig. I don't know what happened with who was supposed to.
So you like listen to it in the car?
Yeah, I'm like Cape Crusade, you know. And so one of the hours that I learned it was not even with my bass in my hand. It was the hour between driving to DC and Baltimore. You know, so anyway, I had an hour there, and I said, "Man, I wish I could have more time at home learning it." So I said, "But that's all right. I'm gonna keep dropping it in my ear." And you know, rolled up to it, and the gig came out nice. Man.
Did they tell you beforehand which segments of the compilation they were going to play in the show, or did you just listen to everything and then say, okay, whatever they do, I'm going to jump in?
That's exactly what I did because I knew that a lot of times when you listen to the record, no professional artist, you know, especially a recording artist, really plays it the exact same way. When they play it live, the tempo is normally faster. They have a lot of production, dramatic things, you know, and so not only did I, you know, it took me 2 hours to learn it, but one of those, I guess when I got in there and we had a rehearsal, I had to actually learn the arrangement. So it's one thing to learn the song. Yes. It's another thing to learn the arrangement.
Because if he breaks it down and he talks to the crowd and then he comes back and he wants, you know, the drum and he wants the bass to come back, but the other instruments he doesn't want them in yet. You had to learn and fill in those things all within a couple hours and then the rehearsal.
And you know, one thing I like about him is during this time that I was playing with him, Rick James passed. And one special gig I never forget was we did some of Rick James songs, and he actually played bass with me. So it was like two bass players. You know what I mean? And man,
that was special.
And that was happening, man. Even Roy Ayers was on the show, and he came on after us. And Roy Ayers said, "Man," he says, "Man, you guys lit it up, man." He said, "Man, the stage is." It's hot. It's hot. You know what I mean? So yeah, man. And Michael's, you know, Michael also played on some of Miles Davis stuff.
Is that right?
You know, so you know, and he would always let me loose, man. He would like turn you loose.
Well, I'm going to close before you take over with Atlantic Star. Talk about that experience.
You know, Atlantic Star. You know, playing with them guys. It's interesting. First of all, they're out of New York, and
Which is different than being from any place else.
That's right. New York, everything's in New York. And I had a guy named Ace. He's from around here. Ace plays guitar, and what I did was they were recording the Atlantic Star Greatest Hits, and they for some reason wanted to do some work on Touch of Four-Leaf Clover. So I recorded several songs on their, you know, on their greatest hit album. And matter of fact, the one that's on the Touch the Four-Leaf Clover version that's on YouTube is really me playing. You know, so that was a shocker. So anyway, once I did that recording with them, we went all up and down the East Coast and eventually ended up in Japan. You know, so I'm telling you, that was great, man. Them dudes can play, man.
Yeah, no, they are exceptional. I've seen them in different arenas, and they always are professional.
Singing tune don't need a lot of touch-up stuff. They're just strong, solid musicians.
You know, and I'll give you some self-disclosure. My appreciation for the music industry began with my mother, who worked at Howard University for many years. She worked in the dental department. She worked in the Department of Oncology, Student Affairs, I believe. And then somehow she migrated over to WHUR. And I was a Quiet Storm fan from the jump, but then it gave me a chance to just really pay attention to the development of the music, the artists as they came through, you know, hearing some of the stories and experiencing some of the information firsthand from some of these folks. Man, it's just incredible. And the other thing that I found out is that, you know, you guys are actually real people. You know, when I saw certain people on stage, I mean, when I first saw Sugar Bear on stage with EU, you know, he came out on Capitol Center with a cape on and put his foot up on the monitor and started playing, and I was like, Jesus Christ just showed back up, you know. And then when I met the guy, I was like, he's a real person. And he was laughing and talking and having a conversation about the Redskin game. And I said, you know about the Redskins? He said, come on, man. You know, so it's a beautiful thing.
I used to eat lunch with him years ago, man. He was a Popeye's chicken fan, man.
Incredible.
You know what I mean? He was a Popeyes fan. But I go there, man, and I know every Wednesday.
Chicken later.
One way, man.
Chicken and biscuits. Over there on Georgia Avenue.
Yeah, man. I'm telling you, man. He's a great guy, though. Great guy.
Hey, folks, we're going to come back and we're going to talk briefly about the AVON Lucas project, and then we're going to get right into some instrumentation from my main man here, Mr. AVON Lucas. Sit tight. We'll be right back.
When I started the concept of the AVON Lucas project, I wanted to do a very wide scope of music, you know, not just jazz or R&B. Even though around town I'm kind of known as a fusion guy, you know, Stanley Clarke, Chick Corea. But really, this project, I didn't want it to be just a bass thing. I wanted to be more about just music itself. And, you know, my experiences, you know, a lot of my history is actually not as an upfront bass player as the AVON Lucas project is, but it was more of a background guy playing behind national acts. And so with this act, I wanted to, you know, I have a 7-piece group, trumpet, sax, guitar, have a female vocalist. And, you know, to sort of entertainment, put up the entertainment value. We do some things. We do some Wayman Tisdale. I even do some cover songs with Victor Wooten, things like that. But, you know, the bottom line is I'm just trying to make very good soulful music, and the various genres is just sort of an avenue that of expression. And so if you come and check me out, be prepared to hear a wide variety of things. I even do a little classical, so you definitely won't be bored, and you'll see that this instrument, which is really what I'm trying to promote, you know, what the bass itself can do. And it's a very beautiful instrument. This instrument right here is a custom-made 9-string bass. I call it a contra tenor bass. Contra because it goes lower than the normal bass, and tenor because it goes higher. We have a low F sharp, a low B, E, A, D, G, C, and then we have an F and a B flat. And so this is a very somewhat more difficult instrument to play, especially this one because as you see it's fretless. I met a guy at the NAMM show named Chris Benavente, and he actually made this bass for me. So if you're interested in just seeing what the bass can do, how it can fit not only as a melodic instrument, but as a rhythmic giant, we can see that this instrument is just definitely something that I fell in love with. I've been playing for close to 40 years, and so it's definitely one of the loves of my life. So I would sincerely ask everyone to come out and check me out whenever you see the name. I first started playing bass, the way most guys would play bass is, they would have two hands and one note, so to speak. You would do like that, and you would use your plucking hand and your fingering hand, and that gives you sort of a certain type of bass playing, solid, like James Jamerson type stuff. But I've quickly found out you can do a few things. For instance, you can do, and that's two hands, one note. But what about this? Sort of same thing, but now I have this whole free hand to do stuff with. So I thought I can call this hand a little Africa because this drums is my next favorite instrument. And notice how it gets more complicated. Slapping. Yeah, I like that song. But yeah, that grooving and that funking is some of the things that we do. So if you like that grooving bass, if you like the slapping, if you like the melodic thing on the bass, well, what I try to do is marry those things together and make it entertaining for everyone. So come out and check out the Avon Lucas project.
All right, folks, welcome back to Roland GRIMES, Not Just Sports Entertainment Show. I hope you enjoyed some of that classical, funky, melodic playing of my esteemed guest, Mr. Avon Lucas, with the Avon Lucas Project. He has a major concert coming up in the Washington, D.C. area, early November. Avon, I'm going to ask you a little bit about that. In November, I believe the date is November 3rd.
Right, November 3rd.
You're going to be playing in Bethesda, Maryland.
Right.
At the actual name of the place, I sometimes don't get it right, so you all forgive me, but I want to say Bethesda Supper Club, but that's not what it's called.
Well, so it's the Bethesda Blues and Jazz Supper Club.
There it is.
So
yeah. I have to work on my mathematical sequences to fall into my grammatical sequences so I can get that Bethesda Blues and Jazz Supper Club, November 3rd, Avon Project. And what can we expect when we walk in the door that evening?
Well, you're gonna hear some very energetic music. You know, it's, first of all, I'm a very energetic player. You know, I'm sort of a Slay the Dragon bass player. I'm a very, you know, aggressive bass player. And so we're gonna have that. However, I temper myself.
Man, you should have veins popping out of this neck and head when you said I'm aggressive.
I temper myself with, you know, I have a vocalist, great singing drummer, Milton Smith. I have Miriam Wright is also going to be singing, and I've been, you know, been around the world with her because she used to sing with Peaches and Herb, which I still play with Peaches and Herb. You know, every now and then we go out on the road. So, great keyboard player, trumpet and sax. You know, so I got a small horn section. Because what I'm trying to do is really anything that we touch, I want to nail it. You know, I just want to give it a good presentation. And for those who are fusion heads, you know, I'm doing a couple of fusion songs. You know what I mean? Because fusion is, you know, is kind of where I'm at musically. You know, but you can't, you know, it's definitely not a bread and butter genre. You know, but there's going to be some of those moments as well. So come on out.
All right, folks, you heard it right from the horse's mouth, and of course, I'm going to put my bid in to be MCMD for the affair, so I can introduce Avon Lucas and the Avon Lucas. Probably working on it right now. Hopefully, I can get a gig, baby. Nonetheless, Roland Bubba Grimes once again signing off. My good friend, Mr. Avon Lucas, out here in Prince George's County, Maryland, where we do it, and we do it funky, rhythmic, melodic, blues, and jazz. God bless you. Once again, signing off, Roland Bubba Grimes. Roland Grimes, not just sports and entertainment show. God bless, and we'll see you soon. Bye.